Hey guys, Bergs here from the Casual Athlete, and I got a nice 6 out of 8 for zero tackles tips for last week. Let's see if we can keep that momentum rolling. Round 22 starts at Leichhardt on Thursday night, where the Tigers will be taking on the Cowboys. Now, these two teams played out some really ridiculous, let's be honest, fixtures last year, with the Tigers winning 66 to 18 at Leichhardt. And 5 weeks later, the Cowboys turned it round and won 74-0. So I'm not too sure what to expect in this game. As a Cowboys fan myself, I would like a Cowboys victory, and I think they were quite good last week in terms of putting up the points and having the necessary defense to be able to stop the Sharks. And it's a team that we don't have a great record against the Cowboys, so I was very impressed to see them get that win. For the Tigers, I think they showed a lot of fight, but it just ended up not being enough, and that seems to be the case most weeks, unfortunately. As far as the tip goes, I'm going to be taking the Cowboys 13 plus. If they are going to be serious about making these finals and making a run towards this top eight and not only improving their position, but maybe securing a home final in either sixth or fifth position, then they need to go down to Leichhardt and win this game. The thing that does worry me is the Tigers are pretty good at Leichhardt this year, but I just feel like they're not going to have enough in the tank to take on this Cowboys side, even though they are missing Ruben Cotter and Jason Taumalolo. Let's go the Cowboys, 13 plus. Over to New Zealand we go for the Warriors taking on the Eels. Now, these two teams haven't met at Mount Smart since 2017, so that is good for any across the ditch Eels fans to get out and see their team locally. For this game, though, however, I do feel like the Warriors are the stronger team. It's not a knock against the Eels. They've had a lot of injuries this year and a lot of other things to deal with coach sackings and the like. So I feel for the Warriors, they should get this game done. They're playing the teams coming 17th and 16th back-to-back weeks. They did make it tough on themselves a little bit last week. I thought Roger would move back into the fullback role, but they have gone with the all-experienced Charles Nickel-Klukstar. Sean Johnson is back into the side, and Chanel Harris-Tavita has kept his position in the halves ahead of Tamare Martin. A bit surprising to me, considering I thought Tamare Martin had been fantastic while Sean Johnson was on the sidelines. I just feel like for the Warriors, they've got to get this one done 13 plus. Just for the Eels, all you want to see at this stage of the year is fight. I know a lot of players are probably going to get the tap on the shoulder from the new coach coming in, and there will be a few roster changes next year, and hopefully some players will be getting a lot fitter for them. Some standouts for them this year have been Blaise Taulagi. The emergence of him has been great. Hopefully he re-signs with the club as well. But we got to go the Warriors in this one, 13 plus. Over to Perth for the Dolphins taking on the Roosters, and the Dolphins, well, they are taking a little bit of a fade towards the end of the year at the moment. 2 out of their last 8 games, and you've got to say they really threw away the game against the Titans last week. Completed only 4 sets from the 45-minute mark right until the 80th minute, and when you keep giving the opposition chances to score, they're eventually going to get over that line. For the Roosters, they just scored more points than Manly. Yes, they gave up a few opportunities of their own, but it ended up not costing them in the end. I feel like if they are going to be a title contender this year, they're sitting in the 3rd position. They haven't beaten the Storm or the Panthers, yes, but they are definitely the 3rd strongest team this year. They have a great pack of forwards, a decent halves pairing, and some pretty good outside backs, especially with Joey Manu coming back into the side this week. I've got to give it to the Roosters. I think they get this one done in Perth. If it was up in Queensland, I would consider tipping the Dolphins. However, I just feel like they are fading at this time of the season, and it's something that they did last year. They're lacking a little bit of squad depth to be able to deal with a full 27-round schedule. Not sure if they're going to make the 8 at this stage. They're sitting in 8th position, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to go the Roosters, 13 plus. Titans Broncos up now, and I thought the Titans were exceptional last week in that second half. They really didn't look like winning that game for the first 50 minutes, but hung tough and just capitalized on the opportunities that were provided for them from the Dolphins and managed to get over the line. They do have a couple of very interesting ins this week listed on the reserves bench. We have AJ Brimson listed as 19th man and Jamin Jolliffe, who has been exceptional for them this year, listed as 18th man. Hopefully they can get into the side. It would bolster them quite a bit. On the other side, I feel like the Broncos were outcoached last week. They weren't prepared for any of the attacking plays, especially from the Dogs. And one thing you've got to remember about the Dogs is they have explosive edges and they can really hurt you on the outside. They don't have the best forward pack. They don't like to go down the middle that much, but they did notice that the Broncos have a very condensed defensive line, and that's something that worked into their favor really well. They spread the ball coming out of trouble and provided a lot of line breaks and a lot of attacking opportunities for their outside men. I'm actually going to go the Titans in this one. I just feel like the Broncos aren't the same team that we are witnessing from last season. They seem to be giving up a lot in the defensive end. The attitude really isn't there. And I just feel like the Titans are that team that don't give it to you easy and they play right until the final whistle. Example, case in point, last week they were down 14-0 and didn't give up and they ended up winning the game. So I feel like that's going to be a very similar case this week. I'm going to go the Titans 1-12, and for the Broncos, it'll unfortunately end their hopes of making the 8 this year. The Storm take on the Dragons at Amy Park, and the Storm finally have their spine back together. Cameron Munster has been named to start alongside Jaram Hughes in the halves. I feel like for the Dragons, they've named Tyrell Sloan back at fullback, and last week was probably a game they want to forget against the Panthers. It seems pretty clear cut in this one. I'm going to be going the Storm 13 plus. I just feel like the Dragons, they've put in a decent effort this year, and I really love their back rower rotation in Faitala Mariner, Luciano Leilua, and Jaden Sewer. But they are going to be up against it this week. I just feel like the Storm, they're leading the table this year. There's a few games that really could have gone either way for them. They've been scrappy in quite a few games, including last week against the Eels. It took them a while to get things really moving, but I just feel like they find a way to win games, and they will in this one. It's just a simple case of one team being better than the other. I feel like Shane Flanagan will give them a real shake, but I just feel like the Storm will run away with it in the end. We're down at Shark Park on Saturday night for the Sharks taking on the Rabbitohs. Now, the Sharks, unfortunate not to get a win last week. They did score a try towards the end of the game to make the game look a little bit closer, but they are going to be without Ronaldo Mulatalo for the next month, who he has hurt his knee, unfortunately. So Sam Stonestreet from the Newtown Jets will come back in on the wing. And for the Rabbitohs, young Fletcher Myers comes into the side in place of Alex Johnston, who has unfortunately torn his Achilles and will be out for the next 6 to 9 months. Long recovery for those Achilles injuries. Hearts go out to him on that one. For the tip here, I'm going to be going the Sharks 1-12. I feel like the Rabbitohs are just lacking a little bit in the troops department. They've got injuries coming out of all crevices at this point in the season, and they've had a few guys that have been unavailable this year. A valiant effort to be where they are, considering where they were earlier this year. But I just feel like the Sharks are going to be a little bit too strong in this one on their home turf, and they get a win here, 1-12. Bluebet Stadium is our first venue on Sunday for the Panthers taking on the Knights. Now, the Knights have not beaten the Panthers since 2018, and you got to say, coming into this one, they are quite the fair underdogs. Dylan Edwards and Dane Laurie are missing in action, and that is fullback choice number 1 and 2 off the board for Penrith. So young Isaiah Yongi comes into the side, and he has been tearing it up in the New South Wales Cup for the last couple of seasons. Very interested to see how he performs on the weekend. I do feel like the Knights, they're really up against it here. And in terms of making the finals, it's probably a game that they need to win. I just don't see it happening. They are coming off the bye, so hopefully most of their players got a nice rest and are fit and ready to go for this one. The big question mark for me is putting Phoenix Crossland in the 7 position. I'm not sure if Adam O'Brien's been watching the same games that everyone else has been, but Phoenix Crossland doesn't really have the kicking game that is necessary for the NRL. But hey, we'll see how it goes. He's definitely very solid in defence, along with Tyson Gamble. I expect Tyson Gamble to be doing most of the kicking, though, this weekend. And hopefully Ponga can have a couple of highlight plays. But I'm going to be going the Panthers 13 plus here. I just feel like they'll continue this winning streak that they have against the Knights. And the Knights, unfortunately, will be looking at what they can do to try and make these finals after this game. Our last game of the round is the Dogs taking on the Raiders at Belmore, and it's a ground where the Raiders haven't lost at since 1998, and they also come into this game on a 9-game winning streak against the Dogs. However, I feel like this is a Dog side that we're witnessing that are in the mood to break a few hoodoos and a few streaks this season. They've already done it a couple of times this year, and by God, they were fantastic last week. Absolute Hollywood football, razzle dazzle. Loved seeing the edges really excel. Bronson Jerry and Kiraz, as I spoke about before, and Connor Tracy had an absolute field day against the Broncos at Suncorp. I really feel like they are poised to win this game. However, they do have to deal with the Raiders' forward pack, and their forward pack is a big one. They do tend to get the upper hand in most games and can punish you down the middle. They've really found a niche with Tom Starling as well out of dummy half. He seems to be a more preferred hooker than Danny Levi at this stage of the season. For the Dogs, I do feel like they get the win here 1-12, but it's not going to be easy. Stephen Crichton and Addo Carr are back into the side, so that definitely helps them a lot in terms of leadership. I just feel like they are, once again, out of Belmore, really tough to beat. They haven't lost a game at home this season, and I got to back them in here 1-12. So that's it for Zero Tackles tips for round 22, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.